It was late evening when the radio went quiet. Mozambique's presidential plane had disappeared near the South African border. Hours later, wreckage was found scattered across the mountains. And the man who freed Mozambique was gone. To this day, no one can say for sure if Samora Machel's death was an accident or an assassination. Samora Machel was born on September 29, 1933 in a small village called Chilembene in Gaza province, southern Mozambique. At the time, the country was still under Portuguese rule. His parents were poor farmers and they were forced to grow cotton for the colonial government instead of food. His family struggled, and when his older brother went to work in the South African mines, he never came back alive. That loss, it stayed with Samora for life. He only got a few years of school at the Catholic mission. At that time, education wasn't made for Africans. The system was designed to keep them uneducated. The only job he could aim for was nursing, so he trained as a nurse and he worked at the Miguel Bombarda Hospital in Lourenço Marques, what we now call Maputo. That hospital changed everything for him. Samora saw how white nurses were earning more money than black nurses. The black nurses worked twice as hard. He saw how injured African workers were treated worse than the white ones. That's when he said one of his most famous lines: "The rich man's dog gets more medicine than the worker who built his house." And that was the fire that turned a nurse into a revolutionary. In 1962, Samora secretly left Mozambique and he joined the independence movement, Frelimo, the Front for the Liberation of Mozambique. It was formed by Eduardo Mondlane in exile in Tanzania. He trained as a guerrilla fighter, and by 1964 he was already leading Frelimo's first attacks against Portuguese troops in the north. Samora wasn't the kind of commander who gave orders from behind. No. He fought alongside his soldiers. He slept in the bush with them, ate what they ate, risked what they risked. He earned their respect, not through rank, but through courage. When Frelimo's first leader, Eduardo, when he was assassinated in 1969 by a parcel bomb, it could have ended the movement, but Samora stepped up. By 1970, he became Frelimo's new leader and commander-in-chief. His message to his fighters was simple. The war wasn't just about removing the Portuguese. It was about changing the mindsets that they had left behind. He said our revolution must create a new man, one who refuses to be a slave. Then in 1974, Portugal's dictatorship collapsed in what became known as the Carnation Revolution. Suddenly, Mozambique's long fight for freedom had a chance. After years of war, the Portuguese finally agreed to leave. On June 25, 1975, Mozambique became independent and Samora Machel became the country's first president. From that day, he wanted to rebuild everything that the colonial system had broken. He pushed for free education, free healthcare, equal rights for women. He nationalized land, schools, hospitals, so that every Mozambican, not just the privileged, everybody could have access to these things. He turned colonial estates into farms and hospitals into clinics, public clinics. It was an idealistic vision, maybe too big for a young country that had lost most of its skilled workers after the Portuguese fled, but he believed in it completely. He was also one of Africa's loudest voices against apartheid. He allowed liberation fighters from Zimbabwe and South Africa to train inside Mozambique. That decision came with a big cost. In 1977, white minority governments in Rhodesia and apartheid South Africa, they began secretly funding a rebel group called Renamo, the Mozambique National Resistance. They were doing that to destabilize his government. Renamo attacked villages, burned schools and hospitals, targeted ordinary people. It was brutal. The war, it tore the country apart. Mozambique's farms stopped producing food, roads were destroyed, factories shut down, millions fled their homes. Despite all this, Samora refused to back down. He told his people, they can destroy our bridges, but they will never destroy our will. But by the early 1980s, the war combined with drought, famine, it pushed the country to a breaking point. Mozambique's economy, it completely collapsed. Machel began reaching out to Western countries for help. Then in 1984, he signed the Nkomati Accord, a peace deal with apartheid South Africa. It said that both countries would stop supporting each other's rebels. Mozambique agreed to expel the ANC fighters and South Africa promised to stop backing Renamo. But South Africa lied. Renamo continued its attacks and Mozambique kept bleeding. By 1986, the war had killed thousands. It had destroyed almost everything Samora had tried to build. Still, he kept going. Then came October 19th, 1986. That evening, Samora Machel, he was returning from a regional summit in Zambia, where African leaders were discussing how to end the wars in Southern Africa. His plane, a Soviet-made Tupolev plane, it disappeared from radar. It had gone off course and it crashed into the Lebombo Mountains in Mbuzini, just inside South Africa. Out of 44 people on board, 34 were killed, including Samora Machel. Only 10 survived, badly injured, but they survived. The South African apartheid government, they quickly claimed that it was pilot error, but few believed that. The crash happened right near a South African military zone, and investigators later found signs that the plane's navigation system, it might have been tricked by a false radio beacon, possibly planted to lure the plane off course. To this day, nobody fully knows the truth. For Mozambique, the loss was devastating. Samora Machel, he wasn't just a president, he was the symbol of their independence. His funeral in Maputo, it drew hundreds of thousands of people, mourning a man that they saw as the father of their nation. And his wife, Graça Machel, she carried his memory with grace and strength. Years later, she married another African icon, Nelson Mandela, the only woman in history to have been first lady to 2 different countries. Today, Samora Machel's name still echoes across Africa. Streets, schools, hospitals in Mozambique, they're all named after him. A 9-meter statue of him stands in Maputo Independence Square, and every October 19th, the country marks Samora Machel Day. He wasn't perfect. His socialist policies, sometimes they backfired, and the civil war left deep wounds that it took decades to heal. But what nobody can take away from him is what he stood for: courage, independence, a belief in his people. He came from nothing, and he fought not for himself, but for an entire nation's dignity. And that's what makes him a hero today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like stories like this, please follow me. I tell these stories all the time on all my social media. Thank you.